Record. Okay, so welcome to the Chakra Meditation Podcast. Today I'm with Amanda Kate, who is a kinesiologist. Is that the correct title for you, Amanda?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
One of many.
One of many. Yes, exactly. You seem to have a lot of things that you do. But as a yoga teacher, as a chakra practitioner, the thing that I'm most interested and want to dive into with you is this sensing into our intuition. That's my kind of thing that I really want to get a handle on. But first of all, let me just ask you the obvious question, which is, what is a kinesiologist? What is kinesiology?
So yeah, it's interesting. So obviously, a lot of the people I talk to are in the States, and over there, it's just about muscle movement. And I can't actually even remember hearing the term in the UK when I lived over there. So I don't. I mean, I know there are kinesiologists in the UK because I'm connected with a few, but it doesn't seem to be a widely known modality. And what it is we look at the totality of the human, I guess, body and experience to work out where those movements are not working so fluently or fluidly. And we want to return the body to a state of its innate health and well-being. So the body wants to naturally heal itself. And we ignore all of those signs because we've not been taught how to listen to them or how to interpret them or any of the other things. And not to trust them either, let alone act on them. That's a whole other story. And kinesiology looks at, the root cause of what's going on. So, what I describe it as is in two different ways. So one is that quantum physicists have proven that the universe is 4% physical matter. So when somebody comes to see me, I'm looking at this human meat suit as 4% of the equation. So what's the other 96%? It's spiritual, mental, emotional, energetic, transformational, relational, financial, hormonal, on and on and on it goes. And so what you see when you go into a doctor's office is, I've got diabetes. Well, why do you have diabetes? Because I've got these symptoms. So why do I have these symptoms? Because you've got diabetes. You can kind of see where I'm going here. We could do the same with pretty much everything else. Well, I've got these symptoms, therefore I have this disease. But why do I have this disease? Because you've got these symptoms.
Yeah.
Now, we know from that holistic totality look at the body that you may have a genetic expression for something, but unless you have a stress or series of stresses, series of traumas, series of switches that are flipped within your body, that gene may never ever express itself. And so what we're wanting to do is unpack what those switches were that were flipped, why they were switched, when they were switched, and then vibrationally shift that frequency. So we do work very much with the chakra system. We do work very much with the meridian system. And what I love about kinesiology is it really is a good blend between that Eastern wisdom and the Western science. And so we look at biochemical pathways in the body. We look at liver function. We look at the way that different parts of the body interact and talk to one another. And we want to almost, clear up the phone lines so that they can actually communicate. And so I often look at, when we're working on the body, it's rewiring that nervous system. If you notice when you get stressed, tends to be mostly two types of people. One is that person, I may or may not know this person or be this person, where you get stressed and it is like every single switch and every single appliance and everything that runs off electricity in your house is switched on at the same time, and you will cook and you will clean and you will strive your way out of that stress and you will work your butt off until you get to a point where everything is done. And you will just keep in that over-functioning mode. The other people are those people where it's like every electrical switch in the house is off, and they are the people who are either asleep or in front of Netflix until that little warning comes up on your screen that, you really should go have a shower and leave your couch. And so what we're looking at doing is rewiring that nervous system and looking at all of those things that are sitting there that are interrupting our natural flow, our natural health, the body's innate wisdom to keep itself healthy and well. So it kind of brings in a whole heap of different stuff.
Wow. I mean, I feel like, right, we could just end the podcast here, right? You all know about kinesiology, go off and get that. This sounds amazing. But so in practical terms, so I come to
Mm,
see you, I've got, some kind of issue that's going on for
mhm,
me, chronic whatever, let's
mhm,
say chronic fatigue, for example, which is
mhm.
something that is cropping up a
Yes.
lot more than it used to. Like, what is your actual kind of what is the treatment? Like, you like go to see somebody and you're like, right, I want to have physical sort of, I want to have an exercise, I want to have a pill, I want to have, fix me kind of thing, which
Mm,
is what we all want when we're feeling a bit crap.
yeah.
Um, what are the practical implications of kinesiology?
I think one of the biggest problems is that idea that it's a fix me idea and that we're going to be able to get well overnight. And so I've had people come to me when they've been looking for answers for 20 years and they literally expect me to fix them in an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, one, you're not
Can't you do that,
broken.
Amanda? Come on.
Seriously, I know exactly right. But I go, well, it's taken you 20 years. You've tried all of these other modalities and you've been trying some of them for 2, 3 years every week or every fortnight. And you're complaining about coming to me maybe once a fortnight, maybe every 4 weeks, depending on what we're working on, to realign your full energy body and basically rebuild that nervous system reaction and all of that sort of stuff. And so it's quite fascinating when you sort of look at that people expect the magic to just kind of happen. Now, when people come to see me, what I do is we have a chat about what's going on, obviously, get quite a detailed personal history, and then it really is looking at what they're trying to achieve in their life. So most kinesiology sessions, you will be working towards a goal, so to speak. And that goal might be mental, physical, emotional, or whatever. But part of the reason I call myself a transformational coach or transformational kinesiologist is that you may come to me because you think, I don't know, let's call it your diabetes, because I mentioned that one earlier, it wants to be fixed and manageable and whatever else. But we might be working on a whole heap of, say, childhood traumas, or we might be working on some traumas that you've got at work or in your current relationship. And all of a sudden, other symptoms will start to shift and change. And I'm not going to guarantee when you come in that what you're actually coming in for is what the universe and what you actually want to be working on. Because we often deny, we often delude ourselves. We often deny what's truly going on. And the thing with kinesiology is it is speaking straight to the subconscious brain. And so we're pulling up those messages of what is creating the disturbances that are allowing all of those things to present so much. When I was deep in chronic fatigue, I was having kinesiology every fortnight. I was seeing a chiropractor. I was seeing a Chinese doctor. I was seeing my naturopath. I was also working with a PT. I had it, and I was very privileged to be able to do that. As things went on and I left my marriage, some of those things started to drop away. But kinesiology, coaching, acupuncture, cupping, massage, things like that have always been, since then, part of my healing remit, so to speak, yoga as well. But that constant balancing of the mind, body, spirit, because what had actually led me into chronic fatigue was years and years of psychological and emotional abuse. And not one single doctor who told me I was the healthiest sick person they knew, by the way, and couldn't pick up the fact that I was in chronic fatigue. They never asked about support structures. They never asked about what was going on in my life. They didn't want to know about me. They were just like, oh, well, here's some antidepressants. I'm
They're just
going,
looking at your body and going, what's
yeah,
wrong with this body? Not wrong,
yeah,
what's wrong with this energy, this spirit, this,
yeah.
yeah, this emotional
And
bit.
on paper, it looked amazing. And so nobody went any further than that external appearance, which of course I was fighting to keep up.
Yeah, yeah.
And, this facade that we were holding up, it reminds me of some of the buildings that I saw, in Christchurch not that long ago, where there's, literally just the facade of the building being propped up. And that was me kind of trying to hold up my life and go, no, it's all fine. Look, you know. Meanwhile, I'm crumbling.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand the desperation that the spirit can sometimes go into. And as you start to unpeel it and recognize that you're just on the wrong path, yeah, it can be scary as hell.
Yeah,
You know, I've
changes. change is hard. You know, I mean, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
something that I've, you know, heard many times, you know, when as a somebody who's, you know, runs a business and runs courses and
Mm.
so on, and I occasionally sort of hop onto some sort of coaching kind of vibe, and that's always really useful and inspiration. It gives me a little bit of a kick up the ass and so on. But they're always saying, you know, it's all very well you're selling transformation, but people want transformation, but they don't want to have to do the transformation because
Yeah.
change is challenging, change is
Hmm.
hard.
Yeah.
And somebody also said to me, what is it? Change is oh, it's difficult, it's messy, and it's glorious. But you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
go through that really difficult bit, through the messy
Mhm.
bit where everything's just all over the place and but once you get through the other side, you're glorious. And that's obviously where you are. So
And
that's,
then you go through it again, and then you
yeah.
go through it again, and then you go through it again. And I think this is it. You know, I've often rung a couple of my girlfriends going, can I just hop off this path now? Like, this is, shouldn't I be through it by now and, you know, enlightened and all the rest of it? But realistically, that's part of being human, is there will always be layers to unpack.
Mm.
And if we want to continue improving and becoming the best version of ourselves and the most up-to-date version of ourselves and the most healed version of ourselves, there will always be layers to unpack.
Mm. I mean, for me,
And
a lot of these layers to unpack are, you know, we've got this three basic layers to
mm,
unpack, which is the physical side of
mhm,
it. And then there's the sort of spiritual, sort of energetic side of it. And then there's the mental side of it. And
mm,
we try and fix our emotional problems, our energetic problems a lot with our brain.
yeah,
And that's why the chakra system appeals, and why I love it so much, is because it
yeah,
gives you that emotional, spiritual, sort of energetic framework with
mm,
which you can use your mind to delve into it. So your
yeah,
mind is feeling like, I'm getting somewhere, I'm, you know,
yeah,
I'm learning
yeah,
stuff. And you know, you have that beginning of that awareness, but that's what seeps down into the spaces between, you know,
mm,
the other 96% or whatever, you know,
yeah.
that you are of energy. I've not heard that statistic before, but 4% of,
Mm. Yeah, there's actually a book out there called The 4% Universe or something. But yeah, I've done a few Google searches on it because I was like, no way. And
yeah,
so yeah, I did a bit of my own research because I was like, no, that can't be true. But apparently it is.
I love
Um,
I love that. And I
yeah.
love that it's sort of similar to that thing where, you know, you have, you know, we share, I don't know, whatever crazy percentage with frogs, or, you know,
Mm,
there's
yeah.
always these things that are so hard to believe because we sit up here on our, you know, thinking, well, we are special. We are
Yeah.
humans, you know.
Yeah.
Surely we're made of more than that and less of that. But actually, no, we are
Yeah.
just as same as, you know, connected. So, but that brings us nicely
Mm,
back to this connecting with
mm,
our truth, which is
yeah.
something that I know that you're really passionate about. So talk to me a little bit about connecting with our excuse me, connecting with our internal truth, because we have constant bombardments of external
Mm,
stuff and opinions and just facts. You know, I mean, just the facts of what's going on in the world is overwhelming enough for our, so, you know, for most people, as for me anyway, on a daily basis. And that influences what you see as the truth. We're so busy
mm,
looking outwards with our outward seeing eyes that we don't listen to the good old third eye, which is where
yeah.
our intuition lives, certainly in the chakra system. That's absolutely
Mm.
the center of our intuition. So yeah, talk to me a little about how you work towards connecting with that internal truth, with your intuition.
I think it's one of those things that the main things you know, for me that are, I guess, non-negotiable on that are bringing in my curiosity, because the fact is we are all swimming in the same water. We are all swimming in the patriarchal system. We are all swimming in years and years of conditioning. We are all swimming in racism and sexism and ableism and all of those things. And we don't often realize how conditioned we are until
Mm,
someone pulls us up and goes, actually, I don't think that's quite right.
mm,
Now, as a result, you know, I am actually quite okay now being told that I'm not right in something. Now, going back to who I was before I started on this journey, I'd have gotten really offended if someone had said, no, you're wrong, because we do have this inbuilt switch of I must be right and I need to be right, because we've been shamed and belittled and embarrassed so often for not being right, whether it be through the school system or with our parents or wherever it may be, that we have this huge need to be right.
Yeah.
And when we go back to that basic physiology and we go back to those first humans in those first tribes, our basic physiology says if I am not accepted by this tribe, I will be cast out into the wilderness to die. And every decision that we make is basically that. Will I be accepted in this situation or will I die? And I know that sounds really, really crazy. Most people also think, by the way, just as a quick aside, that the mind is this bit between our ears. But every cell and every atom of our being holds memories of our past, present, and future. And our cells remember physically and viscerally a lot of our memories. And I can give you a really good example. I had an altercation with somebody who had been quite a, let's call them an aggressor in my life the other week. And as much as I was like, oh, there they go again, and I could see their inner child playing up and I could see their angry teenager, and they were quite clearly in the wrong. They'd made a mistake, unable to admit it. And all they needed to say was, you know what? I'm really sorry about that. I'll get you the right papers in a couple of days. I made a mistake and I'll own it. I'm really sorry. Instead, they came at me, you this and you that, and making themselves bigger and leaning over me. And I'm just like going, you know what? I just don't want to deal with this. And I actually turned and walked away. However, in my body, I could feel that same reaction coming.
Feel it
because
viscerally.
my cells remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, you know, that's where those layers come in. So I'm like, okay, so I need to work on that deprogramming a little bit more. But where we go to with that inner truth is recognizing that we are constantly plugged in, that we are built to move at walking pace, and we hurtle through the world at 40, 60, 80, 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we are constantly watching videos or movies or TikToks or whatever that are flashing images at a rate that our bodies and brains cannot process. And so we bring in the most minute amount of information. And that minute amount of information is then filtered through our belief systems, through our perceptions, through our upbringing, through all of the things that we have been through. And then we go, oh, well, this is the bit that's important. And they've done studies on things like this. It's with the part of the brain called the reticular activating system, where they go, you know, they tell people they're going to get a red car, and all of a sudden everybody reports seeing way more red cars on the road than they had before. You know, I remember when I first fell pregnant, I was working in London, and I'd never, clearly not quite never, but I'd never noticed pregnant women before. And next thing I thought, half of London's pregnant. This is insane. It wasn't that there were any more pregnant people, but because it had raised in my importance levels. And so what I work on is raising those importance levels of the things that I want to know about. So I'm raising the importance of, okay, am I feeling a reaction in my body here? What is that reaction? You know, am I feeling it in my gut? Am I feeling it in my heart? Am I feeling it lower down? Is it feeling heady? And again, you know, even with you knowing the chakra system, being up in our head is fun because those top chakras move really fast, and being down in the base can feel a bit slow and sluggish and boring because the other ones move a bit faster and get us into that nice little buzzy, dizzy place. But in the shadow aspect of it, that's our overthinking. That's the wheels spinning and not getting anywhere. And without that grounding, as you know, it's like letting helium balloons off, and you can go as high as you want, but how the hell are you going to get back down? Likewise,
exactly.
if you
It's so important to stay rooted. It's interesting because I'm currently running my course. I've got a beautiful group of people in my course at the moment, and we're just about to approach the crown chakra. So they're in the third eye chakra at the moment, and we're just about to go into crown. And And I keep saying to them, it's really important that you review your root. You have to make yourself grounded. And because I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about, because the crown is at that thousand petal lotus flower. And the symbology of that is really so important. Everyone just looks at the beautiful lotus flower and forgets that it has to be rooted in the mud. It has to, that stalk goes through the water into the mud. It has to be in mud, sticky, stinky, sludgy, brown, earthy mud. And without that, there's no flower. So it's really, and this is my kind of like my mantra of this week is don't forget your root. You've got to go back to your root before you go there, because otherwise, off you go like a birthday balloon into the ether, never to be seen again, or just caught in a tree. And nobody wants that.
No, absolutely. And, I think of the people that I know who don't ground regularly, and they do tend to be a bit off with the fairies and, la, 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 and off they go. And that can be nice at times. And let's face it, who doesn't enjoy being in that space? But the more firmly grounded we are, the more we can bring it into that reality. So I think having that really bodily awareness of what's going on. The other thing is to recognize the stories that you're carrying. I was able to stand in that position the other week and go, I can see this. I've been in this situation countless times before. Okay, how do I want to react and respond in there? Now, I put a boundary in perhaps the two words that aren't the best for putting a boundary in the end.
Yeah.
But sometimes needs must.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, come on, you could have been a bit better. But at the same time, I was, I could feel that anger. I could feel that, just it's not a hard conversation. I've taught the kids to do it, it's that sort of thing. And yet I could still feel that bodily reaction. Now I had to sit with it for a while and go, is this my stuff? Is this the stuff that they were projecting onto me? And then take ownership of the bit that's mine. And I do that, when I'm arguing with my partner or, when arguing with one of the kids. Hang on, is this my expectations that I'm putting on them? Or is this, my stuff? Is it their stuff? Where's this at? I had a time the other week that my partner he'd been having a really rough few weeks and he just offloaded on me. And I'm like, whoa. And I said to him, I'm not going to take that personally because I know that's just you need to get it off your chest.
But it didn't feel good.
But you need to just think about, and he was devastated that he'd done that to me because we don't work like that. But it was the fact that I could recognize it. And that comes from me trusting that intuition. Now, previously, if someone had done that to me, I'd have gone, right, we're in, let's go.
Yeah, either we're in, or, oh God, I'm so awful because I've made them feel this way and it's all my fault because I'm not enough or I'm not, you put it on yourself. And I think a lot of people in those situations do. I mean, I identify really strongly with what you're saying because I'm, I've had the experience of the similar kind of dynamic where you're being told that it's all your fault. And you're like, oh my God, I was much.
Yeah, it must be. So let me fix myself.
Yeah, exactly. And having the realization that it's not your fault, that it's not your shit to carry around, that it's theirs, that they're just spurting at you, and now you're covered in it. Thank you very much, but no thank you. It's a big, big step, and it's a very I was going to say freeing, and it kind of is freeing to have that realization, but energetically it's really releasing because you just don't carry around somebody else's baggages. You don't want to be pack horse for other people's baggage. We all have emotional baggage of stuff that we do lug around with us, but hoisting it onto somebody else, or especially somebody you're supposed to love, is not a helpful thing to do. So recognizing that, so getting to that point where you're recognizing what your truth is, what's yours and what's not yours. How do you approach that? I mean, I know we've kind of talked to that already, but
yeah, look, I think it is that time. It is doing a lot of this soul searching, doing a lot of the unpacking of your stories, because most of what we carry around is our story.
Yeah.
And how much of that is 100% true? Because every time we remember our story, we're remembering a memory of that story. And so further we are from it, I guess the further from the real truth that we are. And we've added perception or embellishment or delusion or whatever it is. And often we double down on that
Mm.
because that's that human protection mechanism. And I think where I come to is the curiosity and the questioning, because sometimes there aren't any answers either, and it's being okay with not having any answers. It's being able to go, okay, what's happening for me here? I actually don't know. What am I feeling? Okay, well, I've got a bit of, a heaviness in my heart, or I've got a bit of fluttering in my stomach. Okay, is that fluttering in my stomach? Is that like a fear fluttering? Is that a excited fluttering? Is that a warning? Is that a jump for joy? There are so many different things that could be.
But when you
And
start
it's up to
asking
us to
yourself,
discern it.
your
Yeah.
body will tell you. If you actually do that line of inquiry,
Yeah.
the right thing pops up. And that's
Mm.
the beauty of trusting your intuition, is just
Yeah.
asking the question. You're so
Mm.
right. And
Yeah.
that thing about, having a memory, having a story, in chakra terms, the shadow side of the
Mm.
third eye chakra is illusions.
Yeah.
And what are illusions? They are the stories that we tell ourselves. It's those
Mm.
programmings from childhood and authorities. It's the abuses and traumas that we've had as
Mm.
as adults, and so on. And when we have those memories, so you remember a story, like when you're telling your story about that person who was not being so nice the other week, like even probably in the telling of the story, you can remember the sensation, you can
Mm.
remember the emotions that you were feeling during that time.
Mm.
And it's kind of like finding that dissociation with that, and like looking
Yeah.
at it as a sort of like far away.
Yeah.
Oh, that happened, like almost like you're watching a movie, which is maybe
Mm.
why we're all so addicted to watching Netflix and because it sort of helps us dissociate from our own emotions, I guess.
And I think, I mean, that is what, for me, things like yogic practices and meditation give you, is that ability to observe what's going on in your body rather than being what's going on in your body. Because we do need a bit of space. We need that space to be able to have a breath and go, okay, so what does that feel like for me? And building language around our emotions so that we can name them, because most people can name mad, sad, glad,
Mm.
3 emotions. And yet I have charts and charts and charts of emotions that I test up for people
Yeah.
that give all different colors and shades and textures and light and dark and, all of that stuff that life is made of. And we get into the nitty gritty of that emotion. What does that emotion mean to you? What do you think of? How does that feel in your body? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? And I think the very basic premise, and I think it's something that people can do really easily at home, is go, okay, so I'm feeling, I don't know, I'll use the fact that I've got a bit of a heavy spot just here in the center of my chest at the moment. Now, it doesn't feel like a grief or a sadness. It probably feels more like a tiredness, which is understandable because I started my day at, 5:45 this morning, and, it's now, 11 at night. So that's really normal tiredness. So I've named what it is. I've validated why it's there. And as I take a deep breath, it's like, oh, you've noticed me, thank you. And now it's disappeared. It's not sitting there anymore.
Mm.
And our emotions do that. I liken them to toddlers. When I don't know who out there's had children, but if you've ever had a child, they come up to you and mum, 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 pull on your sleeve and mum, mum, mum. And sometimes you just look at them and you go, yes, darling. And they run off and they're happy because you've noticed them.
Yeah.
That's what our emotions are doing. Notice me, notice me, notice me, notice me, notice me. Have you noticed me yet? Have you noticed me yet? Oh, good, you've noticed me. Excellent. You validated my existence. Now I don't need to stick around and harass you.
Yeah.
But it's when we're denying them, when we're pushing them down, when we're suppressing them, when we're hiding them away, when we're shoving them in the closet, when we're ignoring them and pretending they don't exist, that's when they start to become blockages in the body. And they're the energetic blockages that then end up flipping those switches that lead to dis-ease and a lack of wellness in the body. And that feeling of stuckness in our soul and that feeling of, ugh, Groundhog Day. And it's, you can pick up one day and put it on the next and on the next and all the days before it and all the days after, and they all start looking the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I think some of this emotional fluency is, what I call it can give us. And that is going in why am I feeling this feeling? Well, my dog died. I should be feeling sad. Huh, okay. Or even through the last couple of years, you know what? I'm feeling really sad coming up to Christmas because I'm recognizing the fact that the last couple of Christmases were, washouts and we didn't quite get the same celebration. That's actually a really good reason to feel sad.
Mm.
And when we go into depressions, and I say this to some of my clients who are talking about going and getting anti-anxieties and antidepressants. Now, some of my clients, I go, yes, completely 100%, I am behind you, using that to get yourself out of the hole you're in. But I think the fact is, both of those emotions have been clinicalized. I don't think that's a word, but we'll use it anyway. But anxiety is a really useful emotion. If I feel anxiety walking through the city on my own at night, that's actually really healthy. That's my body saying something doesn't feel right here and you better be on high alert just in case.
Mm-hmm.
We need that. Now, if we're just going around our day-to-day business and that switch is always flipped on, then obviously we need to work on what's creating that. Why is that there all the time? Why are you feeling so unsafe all of the time that you feel that you need to be on such high alert? Likewise, depressions are really normal. And I've had a lot of people come to me who are going, I've been put on antidepressants. My partner died 2 years ago, and then we hit COVID, and then we had this, and then we've had this. And I'm like, hun, if you weren't depressed, I'd be upset. I
Yeah.
think there was something more wrong with you.
Worrying. Yeah.
This is a normal life experience, and you should be in that ebb right now. Now, our job is to get you out of that ebb so that you can process all of that stuff that's gone on. And if we can process it layer by layer as quickly as your nervous system can handle, because we don't want to go straight back to factory settings and clearing all of the malware and spy bots off our machine because we would short circuit. We do this gently and easily, and we start building you some steps out of that downward ebb. Because you know what, all isn't lost. You need to process that grief. You refusing to process that grief and trying to swallow it down is actually the bit that's creating the disharmony. Yeah. As soon as we can start to create that your grief and yourself can be, say, easier bedfellows, and we can create a harmony between them, then all of a sudden you'll start naturally coming out of that depressive cycle.
Yeah. And that recognition of that, first of all, and is the first step. And it's just, honestly, if you just make that one step of that awareness, that's going to help. Like, that's 90% of the battle.
Yeah.
But what I find lovely, and the way that I'm sure you do as well, is that I take people out of their heads and go, okay, stop thinking about this. Stop trying to kind of, you're sitting in a room talking to somebody. You can do that forever, but it's in your body. And so that's why the practice of yoga and meditation, you kind of disconnect from the thinking about it, that trying to intellectualize and analyze and do all this hard work up here. It's painful. It's hard work. Like, you can't think yourself out of depression. You have, like, I think it's pretty well known now that, exercise is one of the key things that is going to help you keep that at bay. But yoga it takes you in, and you can actually direct your practice towards the issue that you are feeling, like stiff hips, anybody else, all that emotion bung down there, stuck, just easing through it, just making friends with the pain, just going, I see you, exactly as you said. It's such beautiful practice. And then meditation as well, which just helps take your brain to a different place. It's like giving your brain a holiday, like taking an indigestion tablet for your brain. It just unblocks it all. So do you use yoga and meditation in your practice, when you're with clients?
I use it in my own life, and a lot of them will use it anyway. Sometimes it may test up as, some stuff that they need to go and do at home. Other times it will be just more of that somatic clearing that we're doing. So finding out why they've got, the back pain or the neck pain or the soul pain or whatever it is, and working on, okay, let's neutralize the aspect of that. And one of my clients rang me the other day. She's like, I don't think I'm quite working with this right. She said, I'm noticing these situations that I didn't notice before, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with them. And I said, that's exactly it. That's the whole point. Because what you're doing is you're in these same situations. The behaviors are the same, and yet you're going, Do I want to go down that road, or do I want to choose a different path? Which path feels better for me right now? I'm like, that's you being in choice. And that's exactly what we're working towards. So, all of this bit that you're going, I feel more confused than ever. I said, no, that's exactly where you need to be, because you're making the choice then rather than going straight into reaction.
Yeah.
And that is phenomenal, because then you're going, hang on, that doesn't feel right to me. Again, we're going with that intuition. Or hang on, I've got this t shirt in all the different sizes. I'm a bit bored with this one. Do I really want to be playing that same game over and over and over again? Or do I want to change the script this time?
Mm.
And so, how else could I deal with it? And she's doing it in the moment. And I'm like, hun, you like, that's the
Exactly
point
where you
of
need
what we're
to be.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. No, it's such important and brilliant work
Mm.
that you're doing, and to try, this is, I'm just really loving this conversation because we're so on the same page with
Yeah,
everything.
I love
So
it.
the other thing that I wanted to ask you, because the one
Yes.
thing that I find quite often, because I do chakra readings and I sort of dial down, so each chakra has like about 12 or more little different aspects of it.
Mm.
And the one thing that is always so crucial, and I think is always the first step towards healing yourself, is because it's an act of self-care, is self-care and self-love. And this is something that is always, not always, it is one of the most common things when I'm doing a reading, is that people are very happy to receive, to give love. They give their love and their empathy and their compassion, but actually receiving it back is hard. But self-love,
Yeah.
self-love's the most difficult thing to practice. So how do you guide people towards self-love? Because I always feel like self-love looks really different for different people. Like some
Oh,
people,
yeah.
it's like self-love is, I'm going to go and get myself a massage or get my nails done, and other people it's sitting on the mat and doing a meditation. And I don't know, but how does it look to you?
So there's a lot obviously in that one to unpack, and I'll come in with I guess the biggest points of that is, one, the reason people love giving is because they are fully in control. They control what they give, when they give, how much they give. They are in their masculine and they are able to control that, and everyone loves being in control because they feel empowered then. When you are receiving, you are completely in surrender. You do not choose what is given, when it's given, how much is given. You choose nothing
The vulnerability.
except there is a vulnerability there. And who wants to be vulnerable when the world is unsafe? And so there is a huge lesson in allowing yourself to receive, because when we're only doing the giving, we're only sitting in that masculine aspect. When the masculine aspect is, think of the male sex organs, it is out there, it is projective, it is giving.
Yeah.
Think of the female sex organs, it is receptive, it is hidden, it is mysterious, it is wise. That is our receptivity. And we all have this. It doesn't matter what gender you are, because we're talking archetypally here. We all have those aspects to us, the giving and the receiving. Now, most people go around giving, 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 and not allowing that receiving in, because that's too much. And that is one of the biggest parts is, and I remember starting this, oh God, years and years ago. I was in my early 30s, I think. So probably, what's that, 12 years ago, probably, roughly. And I started realizing how few people ever gave compliments to other people. So I started giving people compliments. It's amazing how few people can receive them gracefully. Oh, no, 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 this old thing? Oh, no. When you receive a compliment, try, thank you. I really appreciate that today. Or thank you for seeing me. That feels really good. Something small. Pick whatever you. Thank you is usually where most people can start, because they feel so damn uncomfortable at trying to receive it. Eventually, it does get easier and easier. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong, but it gets easier. And I think in terms of the self-love, the biggest problem we have in self-love is that self-love has been taken by the patriarchy and by consumerism. And so self-love is told, you need this course to be right. You need to be doing this. You need this massage. You need this treatment. You need this, because if you don't, you are lacking and you are not loving yourself enough. So they put us into shame. And
Yes.
they shame us into our self-care rituals. But guess which rituals they teach us? Oh, you need this skincare, or you need this
Yeah, you need
program,
to
or
be
you
more
need this
yeah,
thing, or
it's all self-care to be more beautiful.
yeah, absolutely. And to, to give to others. Now, my favorite self-care is walking my dog along the beach.
Mm.
Costs me zero. Most of my self-care is, okay, having a bath costs me the water and the bath salts and things. So I guess there is a cost there. But, it's relatively inexpensive.
Mm.
Most of my self-care things are actually me shutting myself off from the world and putting myself into my little tortoise shell and closing out the world for a little bit so that I'm ready to re-enter it. So it's also just changing your idea on what self-care is. Think of all those ads, and my feed is full of it because, of course, as soon as people see you're a coach, all of these coaches that are selling programs to make you a more successful coach come and friend you and message you and tell you that you're not a good enough coach unless you're earning 5 or 6 figures a month, and that you're not doing your coaching right if you're not getting 15 to 75 leads a month, and you're not doing. And I'm like, you know what, stop shaming me. I'm running my business the way I'm running my business. When was the last time you wrote a book? When was the last time you were on talking to 50 different podcast hosts in 6 months? Or so don't tell me that because I'm not doing your strategy that my business isn't successful.
But who's to
And so there's
measure
shame and
success?
blame and guilt.
Yeah.
And it goes with self-care, it goes with business, it goes with relationships, it goes with every area of our life, because that's how they keep us plugged in to that patriarchal competitive system.
Mm.
And real true self-love is going back, it is slowing down, it is tapping into our heart and soul and saying, what do you want? What is in my highest good right now? What do I need today? On Wednesday, I look after a couple of little children, and we were sitting there, and they weren't feeling the best. And I was a bit tired, so I said, "You know what? We're going to watch a movie today." Now, usually when I'm with them, we are jumping on the trampoline and feeding the chickens and feeding the rabbits and running around the farm and doing all this stuff. No, we watched a movie, and they brushed my hair, which was awesome, and pretended to, paint my face with pencils or something, whatever they were doing, and then we cuddled on the couch for a bit. We made we slowed the day down because we all needed that rest. We're all coming to the end of the year. We were all tired. You could see it in everybody's face. So, okay, what can we do that's a bit quieter today? Now, again, none of what we do when we're active costs us money, but that certainly didn't either. And so I think it's really separating out and asking yourself, what's in my highest good today? And notice what happens when you answer that and when you don't answer that question.
Yeah.
Because when we go, what's in my highest good? You know what? I really need a salad today, but I'm driving past a McDonald's. I can't be asked going into Tesco's or whatever it is. So I'll just get McDonald's. Notice how your body feels after you eat it.
Yes.
You'll feel sluggish and, a
Yeah.
little bit nauseous and all the rest of it, potentially.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put a blanket rule on it. But, if we're putting that stuff in our body when our body is craving something else,
Mm.
you will notice a difference. So start with small things like that.
Yeah.
Start with putting your phone to one side, and instead of getting your takeaway coffee in a takeaway cup, get it in an actual cup and sit down for a few minutes. Smell the coffee, taste it as it's going down, feel it going down your throat and hitting your stomach, feel that warmth. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Do I have to drink this a bit quicker because it's getting too cold? Do I actually like the smell of this? What does it remind me of? Again, that's our inner 3-year-old. Let her question, let her ask questions.
Yeah.
And that's your way to stay present with it and give yourself little moments of love through the day, rather than going, oh, you know what, I need to go away for a 3-day retreat because, and I'm not saying anything against 3-day retreats, by the way, they are awesome. But, we don't have to save up our self-care for one 3-day weekend every 6 months, because we are going to be burned out by the time we get there. And as soon as we get home, we're going to be burned out again.
Yeah, exactly. No, you can't live your life just sort of hopping like
No.
like stepping stones, from one thing to
Yeah.
one 3-day retreat to the next one, and just surviving
Mm.
in between. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean my thing that I love to connect with in terms of self-care is connecting with the inner goddess. Because
Mm.
the inner goddess, and you don't have to be a woman. Everyone has an inner
Oh,
goddess.
hell yeah.
Manly men have an inner goddess. and just because she knows what you need, and she knows. So you just ask that inner goddess, and it's that just being able to connect with that. I had my clients recently, just sort of when they were in the sacral chakra, like really like connecting with their inner goddess, and like, how does she look? Imagine her. What colors is she wearing? What is she? How magnificent is she? Like a warrior? Does she got armor? Has she got, or is she kind of some ethereal floaty thing? But it's interesting because whenever you ask somebody to picture their inner goddess, yes, they're gorgeous, but my God, are they strong? Do they know what they want? Yes, they know what's right. They really do.
Yeah.
So that connection with that inner, because that's, again, there's just another facet of your intuition, of your inner knowing. And there's so much of that you can investigate. It's just making that inquiry, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the way, I love contacting that inner goddess, but I also like to get my divine masculine and feminine standing in front of me and notice how they're interacting. Are they touching each other? Are they standing really far apart? Are they standing so far apart that if I look at one, I can't see the other? Are they angry with each other? When I first met mine, because I'd been working on my inner feminine so much, she looked like Wonder Woman. She was this massive Amazonian, she was a fierce warrior. But my inner masculine looked like Danny DeVito as the penguin, this short, battered, angry little man, because he hadn't had a say, because I'd been working so desperately on my feminine that he was just pissed off that all of a sudden he'd been leading this show for so many years, and then he'd basically been trodden on and pushed to one side while she got to the say. And now that they work together, now that they have a balanced relationship, they're much more even. They know when one needs to step forward and one needs to step back. It's that, shall we do this? Yes, let's. It's not, I need to do it all and I need to be right, and there's not that fight. It truly is that partnership.
Yeah. Do you know what? I feel like we should do a whole nother podcast just on that, but I'm fully aware that it's really past your bedtime. So, Amanda, this has just been the best conversation. I do want to pursue perhaps having a conversation with you, but in the meantime,
I'm more than happy for that.
Tell me about your what you do, how people can get hold of you. You've mentioned you have a book, so do a bit of self-promo, and then we'll wrap it up.
Absolutely. So the best place to start, I guess, is my website, which is www.amandakate.com.au. So I do have the .au on the end there, signifying obviously Australia. My book is Divine Messy Human, a spiritual guide to prioritizing internal truth over external influence. I don't have any courses yet.
God, we need to really get into that. See, we haven't even got into that, how we can listen to.
We've kind of done bits of it anyway, because what it is these short little bite-sized bits, almost like we've done tonight, with a bit of self-care and self-love and boundaries and balancing our masculine and feminine and understanding spiritual paradox, and which senses are our intuitive senses and how we tap into them. So I've kind of got little bite-sized chunks, and I've had some beautiful feedback where people are like, I just love that I can pick it up and I don't have to read the whole thing. It's short and it's accessible, yet it gets into details. They're all short little chapters that you can just dive into. There's exercises in there, and it's not a lot of my story. So I had somebody go, I hoped it'd be a bit more of your story, but there's bits and pieces in. But what I've done is I've taken the best things that illustrate the bits that I'm talking about. So it might be a client's story, it might be my story, it might be somebody else's story. But they're the things that really got me from that stage 7 years ago, 8 years ago, where I hated myself, where I truly loathed myself. I used to want to smash mirrors when I saw myself in them. And now I have this deep connection to this self-love, this vitality, this feeling of abundance. And they're all the things that kind of got me there. And so I wrote this book for me sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I think that's, I don't even look at how it's going, to be honest, because to me, that was really what it was for. It was that soul book that I needed back then, that little guidebook that I could pick up and go, oh my God, I don't feel so alone. And this stuff is both exceedingly easy and exceedingly hard at the same time. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And can we sit with that? Can we sit with the fact that this is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the easiest and most rewarding thing I've ever done? And just go, oh yeah, both of those things are true. This is okay.
Mm.
And I am also equally divine and equally messy as hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, okay, can I sit with that?
Mm.
And so it really is getting to grips with the fact that we do need to love that totality of who we are.
I love
So
that.
yeah.
I love this. I love the sound of this book. I'm going to go and have a little look for it. Hopefully, I'm sure I'll be able to get it on. I'm
Oh, it's
sure
on Amazon and
on
Kindle
Amazon.
and yeah,
Perfect.
some other
Yeah,
things.
it
So yeah.
sounds like a good Christmas present, to be honest. And I shouldn't
Yes.
say this because we're probably not. Actually, maybe I will put this podcast out earlier than I was planning. Maybe before Christmas, because that would be a good Christmas.
Who knows?
Okay.
It will be out in divine timing.
Exactly. Listen, thank you, Amanda. It's been
Oh, it's my
amazing. I've
absolute
really loved
pleasure.
chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time today or tonight.
Oh, thank you. Oh, look, it's been a wonder. And look, I kind of have that little heart thing going because, I have so many dear, dear friends in the UK. And yeah, I've got that little bit of, I know it's not really home anymore, but it was home for 11 years. And I've got that little bit of, oh, I want to go see everyone because hearing your accent just, yeah.
Come visit.
Yeah. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay. Thanks, Kate.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
I'll edit that bit.
Everyone does that. It's okay. Everyone does it because
Out.
I made my middle name my surname.
Right.
So everyone calls me Kate, and that's okay.
Okay. Well, thanks,
Easy,
Amanda,
easy.
Kate.